Right, so I'm Claire Williams, so I'm probably a very new face to a lot of you, but I'm very pleased to say there's a lot of familiar faces. My name is Claire Williams. I'm the new engagement officer for Betsi. I cover the central region, and as I've mentioned, I'm covering the role of Megan Vickery. As I said, she was hoping to attend today because I think she's missing you all, but unfortunately she's not been very well. So I'm in post up until the end of March currently, but I am hoping to stay a lot longer. All being well, touching lots of wood here. So I've been in the role now since the beginning of November, but with Betsi for, I think it's coming up to about, it'll be 2 years in April. So before that, I used to work with the Welsh Blood Service in a similar role, doing lots of recruitment, engagement work, marketing, that type of thing. So I was going to say we would get everyone to introduce themselves, but it might take the entire 2 hours of the meeting. So if I could ask that you please put your name, job titles, email addresses, organisation, type of thing in the chat box, that would be absolutely fab. That's a good networking opportunity for everybody. All right. So I am a Welsh speaker, so if anybody has any questions they'd like to say in Welsh, translate for people who don't.
Thank you. Thanks,
Unless we know that it's like a
also, could I please ask everybody keeps their microphones on mute unless you're talking. It's just, it helps everybody else to hear. And if you've got anything to say, any questions, just use the hands up function at the top of the screen. Now, has everyone seen the agenda? I attached it to the meeting invite last Friday. Yeah, so you don't need me to run through that quickly. That's good to know. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm sure I saw Jo Flannery a minute ago. She's first on the agenda. She's going to be giving an update on the 2022 PEN profiles and the population needs assessment. So I will hand you over to Jo.
I should turn my mute off. Lovely. Thank you very much for inviting me, Claire. Thank you. So I think Leonard might be coming to discuss the regional population needs assessment, but certainly what I'll do is talk you through the kind of locality PEN profiles, if that's okay. If I can share my screen, if that might be easier, if that's okay with everybody. Let me give me 2 seconds while I try to work out how to do it. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. And I will make these slides available after this meeting. I can send them to you, can't I, Claire?
Yes, I'll circulate them happily.
Perfect. That's lovely. Thank you. Yeah. So developing place-based a kind of approach to health and social care, and using these kind of locality PEN profiles. So I have worked with public health to produce kind of high-level population needs assessments as part of the Community Services Transformation Programme, with the aim of kind of understanding what makes kind of locality A different from locality B. So what makes South Wrexham different from North Denbighshire in terms of that kind of population need. So it's really about enabling us as health and social care practitioners and partners strategically to respond to the needs of local people and local communities, as well as kind of moving towards eventually this facilitation of kind of commissioning and service development at place. So better reflecting the needs of individuals and communities rather than a bit of a kind of one size fits all type approach. So what we have is a base document, as you can see on your right, is a fairly hefty tome. It's amazing, but and a humongous amount of work went in from public health. But we decided, in addition to those, to move towards a kind of a PEN profile type approach. So whilst the information from public health was really useful, we wanted something that we could that could be used by citizens and stakeholders, as well as for kind of planning purposes, and as well as kind of planning teams within the health board and area teams. So we wanted something that was accessible, that was easy to understand, and that was relatable, really. And as I say, we wanted something that was unique to each locality or cluster, and that could ultimately be kind of owned by that locality and cluster. So I undertook the fairly laborious and thankless task of disaggregating the data from the public health document into 14 cluster or kind of locality PEN profiles. So what we have then is here, the title pages for the central area pen profiles, obviously one for central South Denbighshire, one for North Denbighshire, one for Conwy West and one for Conwy East. These are based on the geographies of the clusters. And so if you have a chance to look through them in more detail after this meeting, what you'll notice, because of the peculiarities, especially in Denbighshire, of the way the clusters work, South Denbighshire, or kind of the Llangollen area, is part of Wrexham South rather than being within Denbighshire. So the numbers look a bit odd if you're looking at it from a county perspective. But say our intention here was to work at a cluster footprint or a locality footprint, given the kind of direction of travel with the Health Board and its new operating model. So Conwy West is always a kind of a good locality needs assessment to talk you through. It's the one we tend to kind of to show off a bit more often. There's a lot of data. We're very fortunate in Conwy. There's an awful lot of data available, so we tended to use that. So the pen profiles start obviously with a nice jazzy picture and just a short introduction as to what they are and the purpose of them, bit of introduction. And then we start with looking at what we've called this kind of village of 100 people. It came, I suppose, really, I'm not a numbers person at all. And so big swathes of percentages and large numbers tend to be fairly meaningless to me. I struggle with them, but I can make sense of a village of 100. It kind of it breaks it down and makes it a bit easier, I think, to understand anyway. So looking at this first sets of slides, look at Conwy as a whole. So Conwy is a village of 100 people. So in that village of 100 people, for example, 16 people are aged 0 to 15. 28 people are aged 65 and over. We know that 81 people in Conwy are in good health. But we know that 10 adults are unable to manage at least one self-care activity. And we move on to the next one. We know that 37 people in Conwy speak Welsh. 60 adults report feeling part of their local community. 2 adults receive support with their mental health. 28 adults eat 5 portions of fruit and veg a day. 25 people smoke, and 15 of people in Conwy drink above the average. So I think for me that kind of it helps to kind of make it a little bit more relatable, really. When you see that village of 100 approach, it's a bit easier to kind of really work out the proportions. It then breaks it down. The next set of data breaks down in terms of Conwy West in particular, and it looks at that data around limiting lifelong conditions. So we know that in Conwy West in particular, 3 people have arterial fibrillation, 1 person will have osteoporosis, 7 people have asthma, 1 person has epilepsy, 8 people have diabetes. Okay, so it gives us that picture at a locality level at this stage. We then move on to more of the kind of population type data, and we move away from that village of 100 type approach. So the first kind of section here now then looks at kind of what it's like to live, what Conwy West is like. Gives an idea of the population size, the age groupings, the number of people in Conwy West who are from minority ethnic background. The number of people in Conwy who identify as LGB. Unfortunately, data on LGBTQI is pretty limited currently. Certainly that we were able to get access. So we were only able to kind of put the LGB rather than LGBT or anything more broad. It then takes us through to looking at things like the assets that make up that community. It's not an exhaustive list, and I think maybe as we develop these moving forward, we need to take a broader picture and scope on what we include as community assets. But we've included things like GP practices, community resource teams, schools, libraries, how many pharmacists there are, how many community hospitals, community hubs, whether there are community navigators or community agents working within the locality, whether there's kind of extra care housing and the like. just to give a sense of those kind of community anchors within those communities. And then we move on to looking then at what life is like in Conwy West. So we talk about that. We've got data there around the number of people with no qualifications, the number of people who are unemployed, the number of children living in poverty, and numbers of adults in receipt of universal credit. We also touched there on kind of fuel poverty as an indicator of kind of deprivation. And then we've got data there around kind of housing quality. So we've got fuel poverty, people living without central heating, people's housing assessments. We've got information there we've kind of quite recently found from the University of Sheffield, had done some work on food poverty. So there's some interesting stats there around food poverty. So we know that 3.94 adults in Conwy West experienced hunger because they didn't have enough food. 10.55 adults struggle to eat enough food, and 10.6 adults are worried about not having enough food to eat. So again, it gives that kind of the overall picture there. And then we move on to looking at things like the physical health of people in Conwy West. And that covers the areas like life expectancy, percentage of time living in good health, as well as things like the uptake of flu vaccines and MMR among children. The lot of the data on the left-hand side of the screen is kind of looks more at Conwy, and then we have a specific look on to the right around that data relating to the actual locality. So the data available for Conwy West. So you can kind of break it down a bit further. We include then information on the mental health of people in Conwy and Conwy West, including the use of mental health services, people living alone, social isolation, suicide rates, as well as life satisfaction, and the service use amongst people within both the county and the locality. It moves on then to looking, obviously, given that it's largely owned by health, we look at kind of living with a long-term condition in Conwy West in terms of the numbers of people living with limiting lifetime conditions, and where we have it from the census. From the census data, we look at the electoral wards to see how they compare against the kind of Wales and BCO averages. And again, we're fortunate we're linking in with primary care colleagues to have some very particular data there around the limiting lifelong conditions within those specific localities. So the numbers of people with kind of coronary heart disease, with COPD, with heart failure, with cancer, stroke, epilepsy, and kind of osteoporosis, and we can kind of break that down at that locality level. We then start moving on to looking at people's involvement with health and social care services in the county and the locality. Talking about hospital admissions for falls, for cancer, and emergency admissions. We look at the numbers of people providing informal care, as well as some of the kind of the more routine reported data from social care in terms of numbers of assessments undertaken. There's data there on the numbers of children on the Child Protection Register, information on children, looked after children, the numbers of people supported in residential care, as well as numbers of people supported by domiciliary care, and who received kind of assessments throughout the year. Now, what's quite unique for Conwy and East and West assessments is that we have a bit more information on people's experiences of the health and social care system. So the profile kind of concludes really with that information on what we know about people's access to services, their experiences of receiving health and social care services. Whether they 73% of adults felt they received the right information when they needed it. 78 felt they were actively involved in decisions about how their care and support was provided, for example. And again, this is taken from published social care data that's available nationally. And it concludes really with obviously the source data, so we know exactly where all the data is from, and that can be used and checked. Appreciate that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the PEN profiles, but hopefully most of that data won't be kind of alien to most people. So this is a fairly new piece of work, and it comes with its own limitations, as you'd expect. So it's something that will grow and change and develop as we move forward. So unfortunately, so much of the data that's currently available is at county level. And you'll notice that, that was meant to be a PEN profile for Conwy West, but actually it included an awful lot of data just about Conwy. So there's only really a handful of information that's readily available at cluster or locality level. And that's the stuff around kind of long-term and chronic conditions, as well as kind of your lifestyle behaviours, your physical activity, alcohol consumption and the like. So we need to get better, and we need to improve that slightly. There's also a number of different needs assessments available, using largely the same information over similar timescales. And this brings with it issues around kind of duplication, resource use and reliability, really. Obviously, this the locality PEN profiles. I worked very closely with Sarah Bartlett and Alana to make sure that we could reduce the duplication, so all the data gathered as part of the locality PEN profiles fed into the regional partnership board's regional population needs assessment to try and kind of overcome those duplications. But I think what's perhaps marked a little bit in Conwy, but if you look through some of the other locality PEN profiles, what's really stark, I guess, and very obvious is a real lack of community and citizen voice and engagement around kind of involvement with and experiences of health and social care. And that kind of data, that information is crucial really to add context to the stats and help us to answer the kind of so what. So in terms of our next steps, we're starting to do some work with partners to map the data we currently have across the various needs assessment. So we're doing some work with public health and various teams across the health board initially, and then looking with the local authorities as well, ideally, to look at what are all the kind of different types of needs assessments or kind of areas where we start collecting this kind of data, and look at where we can start bringing them together slightly into one or streamlining our approach. But I think importantly, we need to understand what data we need at a cluster and locality footprint to develop systems and processes. And we need to understand the data that we need at a cluster and locality footprint. What is it that would enable us to develop services? What is it that would enable us to commission for a place? And then we need to develop those systems and processes to kind of capture that data where it doesn't already exist. So we know we get a lot of locality data from the census, but obviously the limit is that it's produced every 10 years. Are we fine with that, or do we need to develop our own ways of gathering some key data? And importantly, as I say, we need to develop that kind of ecosystem for community and citizen engagement to kind of better understand people's lived experience and feed this into the PEN profiles. And then finally kind of streamlining the number of assessments we have. Ideally, what we're hoping to do is to develop a kind of a locality needs assessment, kind of interactive dashboard that will be a central place, a central repository for kind of key, all this kind of key information across the whole population that kind of brings in well-being, population health, use of services into one central place that anyone can access and pull that information from, rather than having it kind of scattered around. So in terms of how PEN profiles will be used, hopefully they're not just kind of sitting somewhere on a dusty shelf. They will be used as a tool by cluster planning groups, that are being developed as part of the Accelerated Cluster Development Programme within the Health Board. And they'll be used really for both strategic and operational planning. And it's about, and I mean, what we hope really is that they will be used as an everyday planning and commissioning tool that will be regularly updated to help partners better understand the particular needs of their communities. And the same is that moving away from a one-size-fits-all approach and to commissioning and service delivery and kind of resource allocation, and doing so on the basis of community need rather than on county need. And it's about enabling leaders to target resources where they're needed the most. So that's kind of obviously consistent with that kind of prudent healthcare approach. It's about making sure that actually, if there is a particular issue in one locality or one cluster, that resources are sufficiently targeted to that area and to meeting that demographic need. A fairly quick whistle through. I'm more than happy to answer any questions anybody might have. As I say, I'll let Claire have copies of the central area pen profile, so they can go out with the notes and be circulated if people would like to see those. Yeah, but if anyone has any questions, I shall try my best to answer.
Oh, that was fab. Thanks so much, Jo. So that data is absolutely fascinating, and it gives so much weight to the work we're already doing and helping to set priorities for moving forward. I can see that Rob's got his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Jo. That was really interesting. I've got a couple of questions. First one, I think you might have just answered, and I should know this because I've been involved working with Sarah quite a bit. Is, you know, the various pen pictures or profiles, where are they held? Are they accessible? You know, so is there a place on our internet for us to, for all these 12, 14? How do you access them?
They are nowhere just yet. They are just having the final tweaks to them from Refographics, but then they will be on the website. They will be okay, on the BCU and partners websites. Yes, brilliant. And as well as the cluster websites as well. Okay,
and then there was two other quick questions. One was, you know, the references around the health and social care assessments. And I was just going to ask you, I think you've kind of covered it in a way with this kind of dashboard and this kind of ability to look at what's happening in communities. But with the health and social, I'm trying to think what the name is, but the health, because there's a PSB assessment, wellbeing assessment.
Wellbeing assessment, yes.
But then this one with the regional partnership boards, like the health and social care, or what's its formal title, this assessment? But it's quite specific in its scope, isn't it? So it's about different groups like carers or disabilities and stuff like that. So obviously, in terms of that assessment, certain information or insight or data will be in scope and some won't be, because it's not necessary for that particular assessment. So people's views on sustainability, for example, may be valid for the PSB well-being assessments, but not necessarily for this assessment. So will these dashboards or this kind of tool be very specific to the social care side, or a wider use, you know, because you might go, well, actually I'm interested in this, but it's not on there because it's not covered by that kind of criteria?
So we're starting to have these conversations now with public health around what this looks like. To my mind, I guess where I would like to see it go, we know that the operating model with the health board now is around kind of health communities, and with this push towards kind of localities and planning on a locality footprint. I would like to see the dashboard include everything, because actually we know that the well-being, the kind of employment, we know the environment, all of those things have an impact on people's health and social care and experiences. So I personally would like to see the kind of the PSB type wellbeing assessment, the population needs assessment, all of them coming into one central dashboard, because you can't compartmentalize things as much. So you have to be able to have absolutely everything. So that, you know, deprivation in an area is just as important. So it's all of that locality's needs in its broadest sense within that dashboard. So it's got everything. I suppose if people are interested, what I'd encourage you maybe to have a look at is Cheshire and Cheshire West have a really good integrated locality needs assessment on a kind of dashboard, Power BI dashboard, and you can kind of Google it and find it, and that's really really comprehensive, and that's, I suppose, the kind of thing we're looking to.
Statement to go to. And my last question, and I'm sort of bound to say this in a way, but it's almost from an engagement perspective and an approach. It's an observation, really, and I don't know if others feel the same. I think, and it's not just this. What I always feel is when we do assessments such as this, it all focuses on the doom and gloom and the negative. So you're looking at a locality, and it's not saying these are all the great things here. These are all the networks and really successful partnerships. This is what communities feel works really well. It all starts off of everyone's unemployed and they've all got smoking problems, and you struggle to. It's like it's a negative rather than starting on a positive and saying these are like the really successful positive things about living in this locality. But then these are some of the gaps that perhaps. So I sort of think that's just a personal view, but it sort of comes across as a very like negative perspective of a neighbourhood or an area for me.
I don't disagree, and I think we weren't able this time round to do as much of the kind of engagement work as we would have. I would have wanted, and I guess in my head you have the data, don't you, really? And almost you kind of go out to communities and say, well, okay, this is what it's like apparently according to the data in South Wrexham, but you tell me what it's like living here. What are the things that keep you fit and well, that keep you happy, keep your community resilient? So hopefully, depending on the public's perception of their locality, hopefully you get a more positive picture, or a more contextual picture than just the stats by doing that kind of that engagement. But I recognise it's something that was missing.
And it's not just this; it's a lot of assessments. You always get parachute straight in to look to find the problem. Yeah,
and that's what we're used to doing, isn't it? Really, rather than sometimes taking that asset-based approach and recognising the strengths that are there first.
Okay, thanks, Jo. I'll shut up now.
Cheers, thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for Jo? No? Okie dokie. Next up, actually, we have the population needs assessment from Elena Yaxley. So I don't think I've seen her name coming up as having attended the meeting. Elena, are you there? No? Okie dokie. Perhaps we'll mail to get her for the next meeting in May. Next up then, we have got Hannah Lloyd. She works at Public Health Wales and is going to be speaking about the flu vaccination campaign.
Hi Claire, everyone. Nice to meet you this morning. I will just try and get my presentation up for you. She says, hold on, we're on go slow. Thinking about it. Okay, can everyone see the presentation?
Yeah, I've got it.
Is it on? Sorry, Claire.
You know, I've got a little bit of it. Oh, there we are.
Hold on, I've got two screens here, so this is why it's. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Claire, for inviting me here today. My name's Hannah Lloyd, and I'm one of the senior public health practitioners based within the Betsi Cadwaladr public health team. So part of my role is supporting the central area around the immunisations programme. And the aim of this presentation this morning really is to give you an overview of the flu vaccination programme, particularly looking at ways in which we can increase uptake for the influenza vaccine programme. Claire and I attend a central area meeting looking at ways in which you can monitoring the vaccination programmes, looking at the uptake rates and obviously looking at ways in which we can increase uptake into those programmes. And the meeting that we had before Christmas, when we looked at the data, kind of demonstrated really, Claire, didn't it, in terms of some concerns around some of the uptake around some of our particular, some of our kind of population groups. So Claire's kindly invited me here today to just to kind of present to partners really an overview and to kind of look at ways in which kind of partners within the central area can support us to kind of increase uptake. So thank you. Okay, so first of all, why are vaccinations important? Well, we know that vaccination is one of the most effective public health interventions, ranking second only to clean drinking water for preventing disease. And they really help us to protect against many serious diseases that are caused by viruses or bacteria. And we know, obviously, with COVID, it's very timely, topical, that we know that they are highly effective and can be used to strengthen our immune systems, which means that basically our bodies are able to fight off diseases, viruses or bacteria, which also means that people are less likely to get the disease or pass it on to other people. Before we had vaccination programmes, some diseases were very serious to our health, and many people died each year from them. So they are essentially a really, really effective public health intervention, which can have a real impact on people's lives. And we know that vaccines are carefully developed to make sure that they're effective and safe for everybody to use. So, there are rigorous testing involved before they're kind of made available to the public. So which vaccines are offered? So throughout, our life course, the NHS in Wales offers a schedule of vaccinations. So, from babies being offered, diphtheria, tetanus and whooping cough vaccinations, through to the HP vaccination offered, the human papilloma vaccination offered 12 to 13-year-old girls and boys to reduce incidence of cervical cancer, through to the influenza programme, shingles, and also we now have the introduction of the COVID vaccine as well. So most vaccines you only need to be given as 1 or 2 doses during your lifetime, but some may need to be given every year, and the flu vaccination is one vaccine that does need to be given on an annual basis. So the flu, it's an illness which affects our breathing, lungs and airways. And getting the flu is much worse than getting a cold, and it can make people really, really ill, and it can lead to hospitalisation. It is the best way to protect against vaccination. So the single best way to protect against flu is to get the annual flu vaccine, and it can help you to help you to feel less ill if you do get flu. The vaccine is offered annually from September to March, so we are coming to the end of the vaccination programme now, but I think it's still important that we do raise awareness of it, particularly within organisations, to help you kind of forward plan now as we come into September. And most people each year are offered the free flu vaccine, so it's important to ensure that the communities that you support are aware of the vaccine and to ensure that they are eligible to get it as well. So here you can see the breakdown of the different communities who are eligible to be offered the flu vaccine. So we have children aged 2 to 3 years old. They're offered the nasal spray, which is delivered within GP practices. So 2 to 3 year olds are known as the super spreaders within our community, within the nurseries. They're quite often looked after by grandparents who are most at risk of the flu. So it's important that we do encourage our 2 to 3 year olds to come forward and take the vaccine. Primary school age children and also high school children are now offered the vaccine as well. So again, that's offered through a nasal spray, and it's delivered through the school nurse programme. We also have children and adults with long-term conditions. These are people who are vulnerable and can be put at risk from flu. So they're also offered. So people with who may be at a higher risk with long-term conditions. People with learning disability are also offered within the GP practice. Pregnant people, adults aged 65. People living in long-term care, and also frontline health and social care workers and unpaid carers are also offered the vaccine. So this graph here really shows you a breakdown of the uptake for vaccine across the central area. So the groups that we measure in terms of the uptake are the 2 to 3 year olds. So the uptake rate for 2 to 3 year olds, you can see the red line there, should be 75% uptake is what we're looking at nationally across Wales. Current uptake rates for 2 to 3 year olds in Conwy and Denbighshire. So Conwy is currently at 39.5% uptake rate, and in Denbighshire it's slightly higher at 41.2%. So you can see there in terms of our uptake across the central area that we are currently way below where it should be in terms of ensuring that our population is protected against flu. What the data doesn't tell you here is the differences in uptake, kind of looking it down at real kind of local level. And kind of following on from Joe's presentation previously, with the flu data, we are able to look at it at that real kind of localised area by GP cluster. So, for example, in the Denbighshire area, when we're looking at the GP cluster areas, we have Central and South Denbighshire, but then we also have North Denbighshire as well. And when we look at the data for flu, there is a real big variation in terms of uptake rates between the North and South Denbighshire, and that's kind of related to kind of levels of deprivation within our community. So we know that, you know, uptake of flu is much higher in Central and South Denbighshire, and it's particularly lower in North Denbighshire due to those kind of wider determinants of health and the fact that, you know, we have got more deprived communities, and there are a number of factors that may prevent people from accessing you know, our flu vaccination programmes. So for us as a public health team, and in terms of our ask to communities and to partners, is that we can really focus on ensuring that people are able to access that information, understand the benefits of taking part in the flu vaccination programmes, have access to timely information, and can access those programmes you know, appropriately within their local communities. So, you know, particularly within those 2 to 3 year old age group, we know that we've got issues in terms of uptake. You know, these are our super spreaders. You know, for us, you know, I think we really need to kind of focus on ensuring that we, you know, we are encouraging our 2 to 3 year olds, you know, to come forward, and, well, parents and carers of 2 to 3 year olds to come forward and access the immunisation programme. So looking at the 65-year-old and over, so the uptake rate for that is 80%. So we, you know, we're there with that age group. So I think, you know, with primary care, you know, we're working really hard to ensure that we're inviting people, that, you know, people, you know, understand the information. And I think, you know, COVID has really helped to encourage people to come forward and take part and have their flu vaccine. The clinical at-risk group, so these are people who are, you know, highly vulnerable, people with long-term conditions, and, you know, you would hope that people would come forward and have their flu vaccine because of the risk to their health. You know, we know that flu is a serious condition that can hospitalise people, and unfortunately we can see here that the uptake we're looking at nationally is about 75%. However, when we look at it for Conwy and Denbighshire, it is particularly low. And when we look at it at a GP cluster level, again, we can see that uptake is much lower in our kind of deprived communities. So again, in terms of our ask, it's important that we ensure that people are able to access that information appropriately and timely, and that they do come forward and take part in, you know, and have their vaccine as a result. So just in terms of things that, in terms of the ask, really, in terms of, you know, partners within the central area and all across North Wales, really, because it doesn't affect central area. This also impacts in the east and on the west as well. That some of the kind of practical things that you can do to encourage communities to come forward and take part in the flu vaccination programme is, firstly, you know, ensuring that making sure that every contact counts. So encouraging that kind of opportunistic conversations with the communities that you support, having an open and honest conversation about, you know, have you had your vaccine? You know, informing them about the benefits of taking part in the programme, you know, ensuring that they are able to access information in a range of different formats to make that informed decision to then come forward, and just ensuring that they realise that they're actually eligible to have the vaccine as well. The national comms team, vaccination comms team, has produced a communications and engagement Padlet. So I'm sure all of you are aware of, well, I hope most of you are aware of a Padlet, because I think the engagement team do use Padlets quite often as a resource or a platform for sharing information and resources. So yeah, there is a respiratory virus vaccination Padlet that's been developed, and I know Claire, you shared it prior in one of the networks before Christmas, didn't you?
That's actually
Brilliant. So it contains, you know, a range of leaflets, resources, so much information there that organisations kind of can pull off, and they can use then to support any kind of local promotion of the vaccine programmes to their communities. So there's information on there for you know, 2 to 3 year olds, clinical risk groups, kind of general population. There's also links to information in a range of accessible formats. So on the Public Health Wales website, there's information in easy read format, there's information in minority languages, there's information in BSL as well. So again, you know, it's important that we're able to try and, you know, ensure that people are able to access that information in a format that's most accessible to them, to enable them to then make that informed decision. And also, I think, as well as kind of undertaking that kind of general promotion and awareness, I think it's also important to kind of forward plan, because we're coming to the end of the vaccination programme, kind of end of March. So, you know, kind of end of January is nearly here. So I think in terms of planning ahead, you know, if organisations who are here today, when you're looking at kind of work plans, kind of moving forwards into the winter, just ensure that you kind of consider the vaccination programme, so flu as well as the COVID programme, that you're able to kind of include that as part of any kind of local kind of promotion campaign that you undertake, or any engagement that you do with communities, that it's kind of factored into any plans, and also that you're able to access the Padlet and any additional resources just to kind of support you to raise awareness, you know, in the lead up to September, when the vaccination programme is launched again in 2022, and any kind of staff that you employ, or any support workers, have that information to hand to be able to kind of promote it to the communities that they support. So yeah, we are coming to the end of the flu vaccination programme in March, but I think it's still important that we do encourage people to come forward. Vaccination, flu rates are low in the community at the minute, so which is great. So obviously, you know, the vaccination is working. I think lockdowns has contributed to that, because of, you know, we have been kind of not maybe, you know, being with people as much as previous years, so it has, you know, enabled kind of flu to remain at a low level, which is fantastic. But, you know, it's still important that people do come forward if they are eligible, to ensure that they are vaccinated, to protect themselves and also to protect others. And I think the COVID programme has really demonstrated the impact of vaccinations on population health, and the positive outcomes it can have as a result of that, in terms of hospitalisation rates as well. So thank you very much. That is a very kind of whistle-stop tour of the flu vaccination programme. But if you do need any further information, or if you want to access any of the resources, then please drop me an email, and perhaps Claire, if you can circulate the presentation after this talk, that would be great. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Hannah. Does anybody have any questions for Hannah before we move on to the next speaker? Nope. Okie dokie. Next on the agenda, we have an update on the Winter Preparedness Plan and engagement work done by the Welsh Ambulance Trust. Isabel, are you there? I'm sure I see your name coming up as having come into the meeting.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Isabel.
I'm just checking. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes,
Can
I
everyone
can
hear
hear
me?
you, yes.
I was just checking I wasn't on mute because that's one of my famous starting points. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the invitation, Claire. I've been speaking to Claire over the last couple of weeks because you've picked up on the fact that I'm the one who kind of writes and distributes the Welsh Ambulance info burst, which I hope everyone gets and enjoys. And if there's any feedback, please let me know. So basically, a little introduction to myself and to the team I represent within the Welsh Ambulance Service before going into sort of winter preparedness and the plan, etc. So basically, the Welsh Ambulance Service have a patient experience and community involvement team of 12 people that cover Wales wide. We are, our workload is divided into health boards, and we all have our own health board areas. But we also have our work streams, which cover all areas, and they cover all the protected characteristics and things like specialist health needs and health conditions, and they cover things like rural areas, etc. We cover all different kinds of needs in the engagement work that we do. And usually we would be out in the community at least 3 days out of 5, getting out into the groups and taking having an approach of a two-way conversation. We would inform people about our services, all the Welsh Ambulance services, and we also take feedback about our services, and we listen to people and patient stories, and promote better understanding within the trust of what people are saying in the community. This then helps to shape and develop what the Welsh Ambulance Service does in the future. So that's a little flavour of what our team does. Obviously, since COVID, we've gone online, so we're not on the road as much as we have been. But that also frees us up because the virtual world means that I'm now in North Wales with you, even though I'm living in Merthyr Tydfil. So, so basically, that's a little flavour of what the team does. My particular work stream, my health board area is Cwm Taf and Morgannwg, and also an Iron Bevan. So I cover 2 health board areas, but my work stream focuses mainly on mental health, carers and older people. And also, as I say, I write and distribute the Welsh Ambulance info burst. So that's a little bit about that. So in terms of our services, the key messages we tend to give out are helping people to understand the priorities within which we answer the 999 calls. We give great deal of detail in the talks around red, amber and green and how we are an emergency service. So therefore we have to prioritise those calls. We help people to understand this, and we give that message out there that, you know, the red calls is for life-threatening emergencies only. The amber calls are for serious but not immediately life-threatening, and the green calls, we often get a lot of calls which we classify as green, where people ring 999 when really there are a load of other services that can answer those queries, particularly because the Welsh Ambulance Service also runs the 111 Wales website and also 111 service. So we do naturally signpost a lot of those 999 calls back to 111. And we do promote 111 a lot because it takes the pressure off the 999 service. And in our talks and communication with community groups, we work hard to convey that. And also signpost to other sources of support in the community and preventative measures like the flu jab that was mentioned earlier. We do a lot of promotion of the flu jab within our talks. We promote a great deal of community resources as well as alternative sources of support, pharmacies, dentists, and we do a big promotion on our 111 Wales website on the symptom checkers that we are constantly updating. Well, COVID hit us and everything went virtual and online, and we are still out there doing this, as I say. And the issue for us over the COVID pandemic has been the increased demand on the Welsh Ambulance Service at all levels. You know, our frontline services as well as our 111 services. And these kind of pressures have been phenomenal, and they are increasing. It's probably one of the worst winters we've ever had. that we're in at the moment. So prior to the winter months, the preparedness that we've been asking the public to work with us on is the Help Us Help You campaign from the Welsh Government, and also the My Winter Plan, promoting the My Winter Plan. So one of the ways that our service has been responding differently because of the increased pressure is that we now co-work with the military, how does that work in practice? So for example, if you've got in every emergency ambulance, you've got the paramedic and the technician. If one of those people is replaced by a member of the military who drives the vehicle, they are clinically trained military members, but they drive the vehicle, then it means that more vehicles technically can reach more people because the clinical skills have been shared between the vehicle. It means there's more pressure on the one that's clinically trained. The more experienced clinically trained person from the ambulance service has a lot more pressure on them, but it does mean that more people can answer, more vehicles can answer the calls. It doesn't change the fact that there are waiting ambulances outside A&E, because the whole system needs to respond to the crisis, and this is where the Welsh Ambulance Service hits, if you like, quite a serious problem, because where health and social care is lacking, then people aren't moving out from A&E into the community, and therefore you've got the queue of ambulance waiting to get people into A&E. This is a whole system problem. But what we have been at least trying to do is at least more people are being seen, and the call times, the waiting times for people for responses have reduced because the military have worked with our teams. So even if they're still waiting outside A&E with a member of the military and one of our paramedics, they're still being treated and seen. And this is the philosophy behind what we've done. It doesn't change the whole system problem that we're facing, but it has actually meant that more people can receive the emergency call sooner, and more people are being seen in the community. So that's one of the ways that our services have responded, is by employing the military with us. But from a public engagement and from a information getting out to the public perspective and having that two-way conversation, one of the things that I've been asked to do was to develop some workshops, which I did before Christmas. I was asked to provide 3 workshops, one of which was to give an awareness session to promote the preventative signposting to the 111 Wales website. So myself and Fiona McLean developed the workshop, which perhaps helped to encourage people who don't usually use online resources to think about using the online health resources available with the Welsh Ambulance Service 111 Wales website. So we did basically do a navigational tour of the site and encouraged people to dip their toe in, if you like, to find out a little bit more about what is in there and how vast the information is, and how, although it doesn't diagnose, it can actually reassure on a number of health information topics, and make people think twice before they need to ring 999, especially, or even signposts to a lot more community resources like community pharmacy, etc., before even thinking of using primary care services, and so therefore taking the pressure off a lot of services. So that presentation took place in November at the end of Carers' Rights, alongside a further one on carers' preparedness. Now, the Welsh Ambulance Service do a lot of work with carers. We have an annual carers survey where we try to keep as up to date as we can with what carers are telling us, unpaid carers especially. And everything that they tell us then feed into what we do. And this workshop came as a result of the most recent carers survey last July. And it was basically the carers were asking us to help them to be prepared, signpost them to all the different sources of support. So the workshop covered things like hints and tips, staying safe, house safety, home risk assessments. It covered things like footwear, being prepared in the community, keeping yourself safe, having a well-stocked medicine cabinet, risk of falls, preventing risk of falls, signposting to community sources of support for mental health, well-being and substance misuse. So yeah, that workshop covered all those kind of areas. And then the third workshop, which also indicated massive call on our service, mental health. So the third workshop helped to signpost people to many sources of mental health support which are available without a GP referral. So it was all about prevention, really, and helping people to understand that these services are free. Some of them are online, and even health boards have got a vast array of resources that are available. Also promoting the Silver Cloud and our Welsh Ambulance Service mental health helplines leaflet, which you'll see signposted to frequently on our information burst. So basically all these workshops were designed to sort of educate the public, but also to have a two-way conversation. So there was a very constructive Q&A session afterwards where people also gave us feedback. But this campaign continued then in the promotion of the Welsh Government My Winter Plan document, which came out on a special information burst in December, just encouraging everybody to think carefully and plan for their health needs, complete a record of their needs, where to look for signposting telephone numbers, medication list, and basically have everything at a glance, encouraging people to have everything at a glance so that they know that they can prepare themselves for eventualities, especially in the risk of an emergency. So we did promote all those kind of things. The situation is still quite dire out there for our teams at the moment. We have been under considerable pressure because of staffing, because people are isolating through either having COVID or somebody in their family having COVID. So obviously staffing shortages is really impacting on our service at the moment. But we continue with this continuous engagement model to get the messages out there, but also be part of a two-way conversation where people feed back into our service. So I hope that gives you a little flavour of what we do. We also, like with Public Health Wales, we work quite closely with Public Health Wales around accessible formats. We link with a lot of ethnic minority groups, and we've taken a lot of feedback from them. So we're trying to promote at the moment a welcome pack, which we're trying to finish developing, which is especially to help people who have very limited understanding of how the NHS works, who come from different ethnic minority groups. We also do quite a lot with BSL and Easy Read. We engage. In order to do this, we often co-produce in working with people with lived experience and from different communities who tell us and work with us to help us shape what we do. So we've got a people and community network as well, which is being developed, which is going to fine tune all that kind of work as well. So everything that we do is influenced by people's experiences and by, as you say, the patient voice through our people and community network and all the different groups that we work with, helping to shape what we do. So hopefully things will continue to develop along those models. But yes, it's been a very, very tough winter, and these are the kind of things that we've been trying to do. So if any of the groups you're linked with would like us to kind of have that conversation with them, then please contact me and I can link you either with a member of my team, or I myself can make myself available. We very happy to adapt a workshop for your groups and or to be part of any planning or thinking work that goes on in the community. So please do get in touch if I can be of any help to you.
Oh, that's smashing. Thank you so much, Isabel. Does anybody have any questions for Isabel? Anything that she's spoken about? Nope, no raised hands. Okay, okay. What I'm going to suggest is that we take a quick, maybe 10-minute break. So, and I'll see you back here at 10 past. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that went well.
Hi, Jenny Ann. It's Hannah.
Hi, sorry, I was on mute.
Oh, don't worry. It's Hannah from, well, was in screening, but now in local public health. I've not seen you in so long.
It's ages. Lovely
Oh,
to see you.
I've just seen your face. I thought I've got to pop on and say hi.
How's your new job?
Oh, I'm loving it. Yeah, really enjoying it. Thanks. Yeah, missing screening, but yeah, it's going really well.
We're just doing some work on screening on Easy Read.
Oh, fantastic. Brilliant. Oh, I'm glad to hear that you're still involved, Jenny Ann.
Oh yeah. I was just in a police meeting. I'm part of the independent advisory group, and they were doing some work on interacting with the LGBT communities following the horrendous murders in London of gay men.
Oh.
just awful.
Yeah. Oh, so lovely that you're involved though, Jenny Ann, and you can influence and bring that to the forefront in North Wales.
Not sure how much longer. I'm 75 now. I know I don't look it, but I'm feeling my age now.
Oh, the thing is that whenever I speak to you, you're always busier than ever. So it'll be a shock to the system if you do slow down.
And to mine. It's what keeps me going, I think.
I know, this is it. Oh, sending you a big virtual hug.
Oh, and to you, dear. Lovely to see you.
And you, Jenny Ann.
How's everybody enjoying the forum so far? Is it all good? Yeah. I love the thumbs up, Hannah.
I think this is my first one actually, Claire.
Oh, here you go. Same as me. This is my first.
You're doing great.
Oh, thank you. So, I had somebody laugh at me like I'm sitting here with my Rescue Remedy pastels in front of me.
Oh, you don't need them. No, it's great.
Smashing. I must admit, all the presentations have been fascinating so far. I'm learning lots as well. So
Yeah, no, brilliant.
it's good to see that the vaccination numbers have gone up slightly since our last meeting, haven't they?
Yeah, they have.
Definitely
No,
36% last time. So
yeah, I think maybe they had a big push on the COVID ones prior to Christmas, so maybe that's kind of encouraged people to come forward and have their flu vaccine as well.
Yeah. Oh, fingers crossed, trending in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I was surprised last night as well. I learned that last night that some of the people are getting a fourth COVID vaccine. So
Yeah, I've heard that.
I was quite surprised. Yeah, but vulnerable people.
In the UK now?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
A
really?
friend, the local GP knocked on one of my friend's doors. She's got a dad who's unfortunately bedridden. I think he's having palliative care. They said, no, but because you're particularly vulnerable, we're giving a fourth vaccination.
Oh,
I was
I've not heard
surprised.
that one. Yeah. Well, I'll check that out and just see if that's kind of been replicated anywhere else.
Yeah. Just in case it would give maybe a boost to the numbers.
Yeah.
Or something else that we should be tracking.
Yeah.
Oh, it's if you want to know, it's weakened immune system, age 12 plus. They will have an extra boost in 91 days after their third dose.
Ah.
That'll be it then. But yeah,
It's changing so much. It's just so hard to keep on top of it
I'm
all.
sure. I get updates from the Welsh Government many times a day. It's just possible to keep on top of it.
It is, and I'm not directly involved in the vaccination programs. I'm kind of an outsider, so it's even more difficult to keep on top of it all.
No, well, I kind of am, and my boss is, so.
Okay, that's a good job you're here then, Hannah.
So Hannah, do you work with, is it Bill Duffield?
No, I work for Adam Mackridge.
Okay, I've not come across him, I don't think.
Yeah, so Bill works at the hospital. I work, I'm the community liaison technician, so I work sort of alongside the Medsman teams. I link between the pharmacies and the health board.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll be getting in touch with you fairly soon then. That's something I want to do around community pharmacies and what more you guys are doing to help support in the community. Try to keep people out of the GPs and hospitals.
Yeah, we've got loads of independent prescribers coming up now, so you can just go to the pharmacy, get see somebody get a prescription and get it there and then.
That's I was talking to Becky and Sherry, I think, yesterday about that type of thing. So yeah, it'd be definitely good to get you involved in more stuff.
No problem. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's hit 10 past, so I think we should get going. We've still got a fair bit to do here.
I'm thinking perhaps the earliest I can make
He's
it.
talking to me there. I don't know. Yeah, it's just on the other phone. So next up, we'll do Sherry's back in. Sherry and Becky.
Do you know what I mean?
DVSC. That's the Denbighshire Voluntary.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Sherry.
I think it's just waiting for everyone to get back onto the isn't it?
Cheers. Bye now.
Okay. So my name's Sherry. I work for DVSC, Denbighshire Voluntary Services Council. I'm the Wellbeing Partnership Manager Lead. My role is to work between the third sector, Betsi, and the local authority. And it's just an update really from me from what we've got running at the moment in terms of my post. So some of you may well know that we've got a series of wellbeing days coming up throughout February and March. And apologies if I haven't already contacted you. That's probably down to me being new to post and my address book not being quite as bulky as it should be by yet. So the wellbeing dates are to take place throughout Denbighshire. And we're doing a face-to-face light touch engagement with the public. And the idea is that we have that very light touch in as safe an environment as we can possibly do, given the current what might be the current guidelines, because we don't know how things change on such a regular basis. Throughout Practitioner on the 10th of February, Ruthin on the 23rd of February, Corwin on the 28th of February, Rhyl on the 10th of March, and Llangollen on the 23rd of March. And it's various agencies that are invited. And if you actually deliver a service and want to come along, please just drop me an email. You'd be more than welcome for me to create the space. We're looking at physical and emotional and financial well-being. It starts off with just looking at financial well-being, but as things go, you end up, snowballing, and we end up looking at a big whole host of things. So the idea is that we're looking to engage with people in the general public that might not have engaged with services before, that don't know about certain aspects of what certain services can deliver. And just how to engage really. So it might be that people have dropped the universal credit uplift, for example, and they're feeling the hardship there. It might be people extremely anxious about the fuel crisis that we're about to hit come April onwards, where our energy prices are expected to go through the roof. And for the likes of Nest and CAB and all the others will be around there to be able to offer advice and assistance on that aspect. Yeah, so if I've not been in touch with you about that and you'd like to come along and hold a stand for the day, or even half a day, or even as some organisations are doing because they are too far, like SP Energy and things, we're doing a virtual session with them so that people can actually log on and engage with them via a virtual session later on in the day. So they can come around, get the information that they want, and any questions and answers can be held later on in the day when they have a virtual session with him via Zoom or whatever in the comfort of their own homes. In regards to grants that we've got still at the moment, we've still got funding in the Denbighshire County Council pot for carers respite. So that comes through us, age-friendly communities, and there's still funding in the BCU mental health learning disability pot as well that's getting distributed from Denbighshire Voluntary Services Council. So yeah, very, very brief. So I do apologise, Claire, for giving me a whole 10 minutes to get through in 4 minutes.
That's fine. Also, I know you're sharing this lot with Becky regardless, so I'm sure she'll more than happily fill in the rest of your time.
Got to fill in the rest of the time. But yeah, I'll pop my email in the chat box now. So yeah, please do drop me an email if you would like to get in touch. Thank you.
Smashing. Thanks, Sherry. Becky? Oh, I think you're still on mute, Becky.
I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Bear with me. This may or may not work. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes. Yeah, got it.
Perfect.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so my name's Becky and I also work for DVSC and I am the Dementia Aware Denbighshire Officer. It's my current title. So part of my role is to sort out some training till the end of March now, specifically based on dementia. Apologies those who may already have had this email to them, but I'm just going to take you through it briefly. So in January, we have some training by the Alzheimer's Society. So the 19th, that's actually tomorrow, in fact, isn't it? It's improving communication for people living with dementia. And then on the 27th of January, I've got supporting people with dementia and other vulnerabilities. I will put the link in the chat in a minute. So if anybody wants to book on any of the training, you do so using the link and it all goes through Eventbrite. In February, we've got some further training. We've got one called Experiencing Dementia, which has been put on by an organisation called Relive. And that's mainly online sessions. And that's an online session. I think it was run earlier this month. And the feedback on it was really, really good, that it was a really, really good session. And it's designed to give you the experience of somebody living with dementia as best as you can without having dementia. We've got a session by Cruz later on in February, the 8th of February, on loss and bereavement, and it's specifically designed to look at loss and bereavement of somebody living with dementia. We're also putting on the virtual dementia bus tour. Some of you may have heard of that before. I think it's been around and about North Wales over the past few years. Two of the sessions are going to be in line with the wellbeing events that Sherry was talking about. So the dementia bus will be in Prestatyn on the 10th of February and Rhyl on the 10th of March. It's also going to be in St Asaph on the 17th of February. So there's lots of availability if anybody wants to join that. I've done it personally and I thought it was a really, really good experience to give you some kind of insight as to what it may be like for somebody living with dementia. We've also got some training being put on by Innovations in Dementia. So I've got engaging in everyday situations, and another one, My Life, My Goals, is a piece of work that was set up during lockdown. And basically the My Life, My Goals is a cognitive rehabilitation toolkit. So it's going to take you through the toolkit they've developed with people living with dementia and explain how it can be used with perhaps people that you are working with. And then we actually have some face-to-face sessions at the end of February and the beginning of March, which will take place in the Nayland Leyland Centre in Ruthin. So that's supporting people with dementia over the phone. And then on the 1st of March, we have supporting people with dementia and hearing loss. Towards the end of middle of March, 8th of March, we have post-diagnostic support, again by the Innovations in Dementia. And like I said, the dementia bus is taking place on the 10th of March in Rhyl. We also, the last one is we have another session called Getting Along, an introduction to an alternative relation-centred approach. We also have some e-learning available called Dementia Interpreter. If anybody wants to get involved in that, if you contact Reese, his email address is on the screen. Also, we run Dementia Friends sessions twice a month. I'm just in the process of firming up the dates for February and March, but they're all run online and you go onto the Dementia Friends website to sign up for those, but I will be getting links out shortly. The other thing I was just going to mention, oh, that's the link, I'll put it in the chat, sorry, is the link to all our training. So I'll put that into the chat box shortly. The other thing I was going to mention, I know Sherry mentioned some of the grants, but we still have the Dementia Aware Denbighshire grant round going on. So grants are available of up to £2,000 for third and voluntary sector organisations, community groups, registered charities, etc., and also up to £250 for individuals. So we have, it's an online application process, and you'll hear within 14 days of submitting the application if you've been successful. The grants are available obviously it's all surrounding dementia. So to organise and deliver dementia awareness raising sessions within your community, to organise new activities or services, or to adapt delivery of existing activities and services aimed at people living with dementia and or their carers, to organise training which raise awareness about dementia and encourage community-led action, so that communities can go on to work towards their dementia-friendly community status by the Alzheimer's Society. I think St Asaph were the latest community in Denbighshire to get their accreditation from the Alzheimer's Society. So if anybody is interested in getting some more information about the dementia grants or wants to share apply for a dementia grant, the link is there, and again I will put it in the chat box now. So that's it from me. So if anybody has any questions, please let me or Sherry know. I'm going to try and stop sharing my screen now. There we go. Has that stopped it?
Yeah, that's it.
Perfect.
Does anybody have any questions for Becky or Sherry? No, I think there's lots of people in the chat box asking for details of the training and various bits. So I'm sure I can circulate them afterwards. I've got your presentation, Becky.
Okay, that's fine. I'll put the link in as well.
Perfect. Thank you both for that. It's absolutely fascinating stuff. And then last but not least on the agenda, I've got Rafat. He just wants to give everyone, well, introduce herself and give an overview on what she does in her role. So I'm not sure if you were, Rafat is my colleague. But instead of having a region like I do in the central, she concentrates more on the minority ethnics and seldom heard groups. So Rafat, are you there?
Bore da. Rafat dwi. Thank you. It's just a brief introduction. I've met quite a few of you before. I, just like Claire, I'm fairly new. I have been here 10 months. My remit actually was born out of Welsh Government acknowledging that more people of colour were dying through COVID and the effects of COVID. But also it's about services and especially health board services that may not be equal and fair in reaching minorities. So whilst I am here for ethnic communities, I'm also here for minority communities as well. I realise that lots of services may just know of those established organisations that either have a charitable status and or a formal setting, but the groups I'm coming across are hearsay. Somebody's told me about an individual, a couple of people meet here, there, everywhere, and as public engagement team we've been quite successful in seeking those groups, winning over their trust, and they actually are now quite loyal. We go out to them with topics that they've chosen. So, for example, right this minute, I'm sorting out a discussion with a group in collaboration, because obviously they're never my topics, they're topics that are of interest to them. I have an African group who want to talk about, obviously, the ongoing vaccination, but other topics such as diabetes, especially type 2 leading to retinopathy. So the topics are evolving as we speak. I take lead from the communities and or contacts. If you have any particular campaigns and or screening, which I've just spoken to Hannah about, be aware, rather than sort of exhausting current groups and overloading them, try and piggyback on existing events. But for me, if you have a particular campaign and or interest, you're better accompanying me and or the public engagement team rather than asking me to do it, because you know more about your subject matter than I do. I can give you or invite you along or give you an introduction, but I'm not here to kind of know the in-depth reasons as to why you have a particular campaign. But if you want me to share ideas on how I reach out to them, cultural competency for me is paramount. You need to understand your groups that you're trying to reach. So even if you can just learn to pronounce their names, where they're from geographically, what language they speak, just like I've said, Bore da, Rafat dwi, it opens doors. It really wins over your client base. So just have common courtesies that I think win over an awful lot of groups that you want to reach out to. But yeah, ask questions or contact me. I did leave my email in the chat bar, but you can ask Claire if you can't find it. Thank you. Sorry it's short, Claire.
No, not to worry at all. It's interesting stuff. It's good even for me to know a little bit more about what you do. So that's good.
Thank you.
So has anybody got any questions for Rafat? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Well, we've rattled through everything fairly quickly, to be honest. We've supposedly got another half an hour on the meeting. Has anybody else got anything that they wanted to bring up or discuss? Anything they maybe need some help with? Feel free to put your hand up or just take yourself off mute now, to be honest. No, all quiet on the Western Front. So I think we're good at that then. I shall release you all nice and early. So I'll stop recording in a minute, and I'm going to share the recording with everybody and a lot more people as well, who unfortunately had to decline today. If everyone who's spoken today can send me their presentations, if you haven't done already, I'm happy to share them as well. And I'll see what I can do to try and share them in the Friday update that I've been doing for the last few weeks. I hope you're all enjoying that, by the way. So I thought it may be better for me to do it that way than to bombard you with emails constantly throughout the week and you're sick of seeing me. Okay. Thank you so much for today. I'm actually made up with a turnout. So I can see we've got something like 53 people who have attended. So that's amazing, especially for my first one. So I was so nervous this morning logging on, but no, it's been a joy. Thank you so much for coming, and hopefully I'll see you at the next one. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Claire. Bye.
Thanks, Claire. Bye.
Thanks, Claire. Bye.
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 See ya.
Claire, can you just stay on for a minute, please?
Yeah, of course I can.
Thank you.
Rafa, do you know if there's a way to download the comments from the meeting?
Yeah, don't switch off yet. I'll just show you.
I was going to stay on to the end anyway to see if I could figure that bit out.
Okay, let me see if I can do them.
Turn off the recording though, at least.
Oh yeah.